February 19th, 2005, and Mom's out here visiting, and so we're going to ask her some questions and have her respond on video here. And so let's see. We're going to start out first by asking Mom to recall her memories of President David O. McKay. So go ahead, Mom, you're on.
My family wanted me to tell what I could remember about David O. McKay. I remember of hearing about him all my life because my mother grew up in the same community as David O. McKay. It was in Ogden Valley in Liberty, and she wasn't born in out there. She was born in Ogden, but when my grandmother married Richard Jones when she was about 6 years old, why they moved to out there to Liberty, and David O. McKay was maybe about 6 years older than my mother. So, but she was in the McKay home a lot because she was close friends to his sister, and she always remembered what a fine-looking young man he was, and when he was a boy, and he was tall and handsome and had dark hair, and he was such a nice, had such nice manners, and was so good to his mother, and but what she remembered most was her grandfather was called Fiddler Jones, and he's a well-known violinist throughout all that area, and he used to play the dances, and he played to all the dances that there and that David O. McKay went to, and he was a good dancer, and he danced with everybody. So he danced with my mother, I'm sure, several times, and Fiddler Jones. So he liked everybody to keep right in beat with his music because he had such a good ear for music. Well, when they sometimes he'd even stop and says, "You're off the beat," and make them stop and start over again, and then dancing again so they could get on the beat to his music. And my mother remembers of when his father went on a mission, and he left David O. home and he told him he'd have to be the man of the house and take care of things and take care of his mother and all that, and he did fine, and my father didn't know David O. McKay until because he lived in North Ogden, but he started to go to Weber Academy, and David O. McKay was a teacher there at that time, and he just got back from his mission to Scotland, and he was so imbued with the gospel and so faithful, and and my father especially enjoyed the religion classes, and he learned to love the scriptures from David O. McKay teaching there, and he went 3 years, and he said in his journal that other than his parents, David O. McKay probably had a bigger influence on his life than anyone else. And he talked to him about going on a mission, and he said he wanted to go on a mission, but at that time they didn't all go on mission when they was 19 years old. Sometimes they were older, and but one day, why my father decided to quit school, and it was a beautiful day, sunny day, he remembered in his journal, and he walked out of the school, never went back to school again, but he did. He was called on a mission and that was about the time that David O. McKay married Emma Ray, and my mother says she was pretty sure that her stepfather, Fiddler Jones, played at their wedding dance, and but my father was called on a mission to Georgia, and he was he helped open up the mission at Macon, Georgia. He went without purse or script, and that meant that he didn't have money, only a little that he'd saved up, and a little, and his mother might send him $25 a month if she had it. But a lot of times that he didn't have money, and he'd have to depend on somebody feeding him, and giving him a place to sleep. And he says that he walked clear across the whole state of Georgia, and I said, according to the map, Georgia's quite a big state. But he was gone from 1901 to 1903, and then when he got home, why he didn't have the money to go back to school, and he hadn't been going with my mother much before he left to go on his mission, but she wrote to him, and they wrote to each other, and all while he was gone, and so he started going with her, and they got married in 1906 in the Salt Lake Temple. But what I remember about him was that he used to come out when we lived in near Rigby, Idaho, and went to Rigby to a conference in a tabernacle. David O. McKay would come once in a while, and all the prophets in those days, why the church hadn't grown as big as it is now, so they nearly always had one of the general authorities there, either the prophet or some apostles, to come to conference, and they would have 2 hours in the morning, then they'd have a break and go down in the basement and have lunch at noon, and then have another 2 hours of conference. But when we got through, I was married then and had some little children with me, but we went. He said at the end, he says, if there's any of you that ever remember, that ever lived in Ogden Valley, especially around Liberty or Eden or Huntsville, I wish you'd come to the stand and talk to me and tell me who you are. So I decided to do that, and there was quite a few waiting there that wanted to talk to him, but I finally made it up there and told him who I was, who my parents were, and he says, "Oh, I'm so glad you come up and talk to me. I've often wondered what happened to your parents, where they were living, and I remember your mother so well, and especially your grandfather, Fiddler Jones, and so I always looked up to what his and tried to read some of his books too that he wrote, and Gospel Ideals was a good one, and he told us that he said in there that if we would live up to the teachings of Christ and try to do the things that the gospel teaches us, we would be happy. We'd be a lot happier if we do that. Doesn't matter whether if we have worldly goods or worldly things or any and I know it's true because I've never had anything of worldly goods much, but I think I've had a happy life, and I guess this is all I'll say about David O. McKay.
All right, that was great, Mom. Do you want to tell about your raspberry story next?
Yes. I would like to tell you about another prophet that had some influence on me, was Spencer W. Kimball. When he would come talk, we would hear him on the radio, sometimes at conferences. Why, he would always be telling us to clean up our yards and plant fruit trees, and along with his other teachings, he'd tell us that. And at one time I was listening to him, and he says, if any of you have any old junk behind your garage, like plowshares or old tires or tools and things that aren't any good back of your garage, why, haul them off, or take them off of there, and plow that up and plant berries there, and that just struck me that I knew that's what we should do, because we did. We had just what he said that we shouldn't have back there. We had back there, back of our garage. So so I told Golden, I says, you know, I think you must have been talking to us when he told us that, and I think that's what we should do. And so, and we had a pickup truck, and we went out and loaded everything on and hauled it over to the junkyard, and then he started plowing it up. But he says, you know, we knew it was going to be rocky because our place was quite rocky around where by our house, and says, oh, we just well give up. It's just too many rocks. We just can't possibly plant berries here. And I said, well, we can pick the rocks off, and we can. We got good soil out there where we plant potatoes out by the canal. Why, it doesn't have very many rocks in there. And we can haul some dirt over, and we got plenty of fertilizer. So we did. We worked, and and he didn't want them very bad, but golden, but he decided to do it, and we hauled a lot, what we thought was quite a lot of dirt, and we put a lot of fertilizer, manure from the cows and the horses, and raked it down and everything, and so that it didn't look too bad. And we decided we planted some strawberries first, and they was doing pretty good, and they started burning, and we realized that we got too much fertilizer on there. So, and I says, by that time I knew I couldn't eat strawberries. I was allergic to strawberries, and I says, well, I would sooner plant raspberries. And as it happened, why Ned had some friends that were plowing up their raspberry patch, and he says he knew where he could get some good plants. So he brought us, they went and got them and brought them over to us, and there was, they were really nice plants. He brought enough for two short rows behind our garage, and they was doing good, and they right from the first, because Golden knew how to. His parents had raspberries. He knew that they had to have a lot of water, so he watered them and took care of them, and we got them up just about ready to bloom, ready to bear berries, and John had decided to rent out the farm to a fellow to put his cattle over there. Well, they didn't have a good enough fence, I guess. They got in and ate them right down to the ground. But we were discouraged. But they came back up again, and we got some more. Every time we would, there was any shoots come up, we'd plant another row. So we had a pretty good size, not a large patch of raspberries, but we had a pretty good size patch, and they bore the most beautiful big berries. Everybody said they'd never seen any larger berries, and tastier, and it got so that there was more than we could eat, and decided to let the relatives come and pick some, and Ken and Jean came over, and and we said we didn't really want to make money on them. We just go ahead and give them half of what they picked, and I'd bottle or make jam and things out of the rest of them, and sometimes we might sell a few cases so we could have some money to pay for spraying and things for the berries, and this went on for about 30 years, and everybody wondered how we could have such a good patch of berries. Well, I forgot to tell that. Well, after we got the berries to go, and I found out that raspberries really hurt my stomach, and I couldn't eat those too good. So I prayed about it, and I said, if I could just eat berries while I was picking them, out picking them, because I just couldn't pick them berries without eating them. They're so good. And so, and the next day, why, I found out my stomach wasn't hurting me, and it hadn't hurt me since. If I go out and pick them, but sometimes the frozen ones will bother me. If I take them in and freeze them up, then they bother me more than if I just go out and pick them fresh. But and we had this patch till Golden died about 10 years ago, and the first year after he died, we had quite a few, berries, but I'd forgotten to spray them that one year, and they got worms, boreworms in. But we had planted another row on the other side of the garden, and it was growing good, and we got quite a few of them there, and I think perhaps, but we never had enough for people to come and pick any, but I'm in hopes maybe this coming year we will get more off from there. And then another thing I remembered about Spencer W. Kimball was that when he come to Rick's College and talked at the devotional, and it would happen to be Mother's Week, and I was up there with Jeanette was going to college, and he gave the best talk I ever heard, I believe, on morality, and he told the students that they should double date a lot, not go just as especially if they was getting to think quite a lot of each other, not to go date by themselves, and not to do any heavy petting and all that. But I didn't know it at the time, but he had cancer in his throat, I guess, even at that time, and but they had later, not long after that, they had to take his voice box out. But he was president for quite a while after that, and they put another artificial voice box of some kind in so he could talk, and he was, and like all the prophets, he was really give some good advice.
All right, that was great. No, I think the family kind of wanted to know about all the old appliances you had and what new ones you got in your marriage.
Well, they wanted to know what appliances I had. Well, when we were first married, we never even had a washer machine. I scrubbed the clothes on the board. Well, Golden's mother had one that you could push it up and down. Had a handle that you could have it push up and down. That was worked a little better than this washboard. So I went over to her place and then I was expecting my oldest child. Why we decided to go and Montgomery Wards, I believe, and well, we didn't have. It was hard times. We didn't have money to go buy much, but we could. That's the first time I ever remember charging anything, and they let us pay a little bit a month on it, and we got us a washing machine, and then we moved into another house, and it was quite a cold house. We had to we just had a little potbelly stove to keep warm by, but we went and by that time we had the washing machine paid for, so we decided to buy a stove, and before that we just cooked on a big Monarch, which was really a nice cook stove, but you had to have wood to burn and everything in it, and but that stove didn't put out any heat, so and the house was really cold, but I enjoyed having a stove, and it had a on the side it had a hot where we could reservoir thing that we could keep the water hot when we'd have the fire going, when we'd have the stove going, while the water would keep hot. And we had that, but we didn't have any refrigerator till after the war, the Second World War, because they weren't making any appliances at that time. And but we went and put our name in for a refrigerator, and by this time we'd moved over to the farm, and only way we had for that to keep our milk cooler or anything was to put it down in an old cellar that was under our house, but we got this old Frigidaire, and it lasted us for years. I think it was still running when we got a new one, but we decided to get this new one, and the old one was still running. But then we never had we had an old radio that I like to really play. We didn't have a TV, but in '54, and my oldest son had cancer and had to have his leg amputated. Anyway, he wanted to get a TV so bad because he liked to work on things like that, and he'd go over to the radio and TV shop over to Rigby after school and spend hours over there. And so he wanted to get a TV, so we got a TV, but they weren't near as good in those days, the pictures, and you'd get a picture for a while, and then it'd go off, and you'd have to adjust it to see, and then it'd have a test pattern that would come on, and we'd have the test pattern for a while, and then we'd get a little more TV, but they got him improved, and first TV, we went over to Jenny and Norval's and saw Lawrence Welk, I remember, and we decided, oh, we'd like to get a TV like that, had color on, and for quite a while they never had color, it was just black and white, but it had some color, so we finally got another TV that had color on. I don't remember any other appliances that we had, but this old Maytag washer lasted me for years, but it got so that the wringer wouldn't stay in place, and sometimes I'd have to, it'd come around and whirl around when I was trying to wring the clothes and hit me, and I wanted to get rid of that. So we got one from Sears, a good washer from Sears, and then we got our first dryer, I think, was in 1980, and when I got a little money from my parents' estate after they passed away, and first thing I did is went and bought a new dryer, clothes dryer. But before that, we just had to hang them outside or down the basement around the stove or somewhere to keep them to dry our clothes. I guess
Okay. So I think, did you want to talk anything about going to Yellowstone and fishing, do things with the kids and Dad?
Yeah, yes, I might tell about a few fishing trips. We never got to go very many places because we had milk cows to milk, but we did get the neighbors to milk for us, and we remember we of us going. We'd like to go with Grandma and Grandpa Anglesey and Ken and their family, but one time I asked Mabel to go with us, and she had Carmen Berkeley, and Anna Jean was just a little girl about 3 or 4. I remember her talking all the way. You couldn't hardly. She didn't talk too plain when she was about 3, but she was so happy little girl, and she talked all the way there and back. But we had a good time, and we stayed in Island Park. I think the first night we had a tent. We took a tent. We all slept in a big tent, and then we got to Yellowstone, and then there was lots of bears running around, and they had stopped the cars and begged for food, and so we weren't supposed to feed them, but sometimes it was tempting to throw something out, for the bears, but they got such a nuisance that and people was getting hurt because they were wild animals, and they could and I guess so that's why they had to take them back in further, the bears, and I remember that time that we go that they have the garbage way back, and we went over to see them feed the bears. They had seats all around up high so we could be away from the bears, and we watch, and children all like to watch the bears eat, and then Golden's stepfather, we call him Grandpa Anglesey, he was the best. He fried the best fish. He would cook bacon first, and then cook the fish in the bacon grease. I thought it was a bit good anyway. I never tasted any fish that tasted as good as those did when we went. I used to go up there with them, and then we had to rent a boat and go out on the lake, Yellowstone Lake, and the fish would really bite good. I remember what I and Golden and Ken being out there once, and I think we had one of the little kids with us. It might have been Laval, and the wind come up, and somebody come along and says, "You better head for shore, because wind might tip your boat over." But I was catching fish so that I hated to come in, but we did. And then when we got the rest of the family, we used to go up once in a while. But Marlene remembers it going up right after her and Laval got their tonsils out, and climbing hills. But it was a favorite place to go. Another favorite place to go fishing was Fall Creek, and that wasn't too far away from us, and like about 30 miles maybe. And go along the river up there. It was the best place to camp, and this little creek, you could nearly always catch fish out of it. And once I know took when the older ones had got married and had children, and I think wasn't that where Eric caught the little fish, and Eric he wasn't watching. He must not have been over 2 years old. And he had a fishing pole down there and said, "Fish," and looked down. He had a fish on his line. He was so tickled, and yeah, but we had have had some. I really didn't go fishing a lot when the family was growing up, but I'd go and watch the kids while golden fish. But then I got so I liked to fish just as well as he did. So we've had some good trips that way. My family wanted me to talk a little about each one of my 8 children, and my first baby, Laval, was born over in Golden's parents' home. His mother was sort of a practical nurse, and times were hard, and it saved going to the hospital. So I went over. It was about two months after I was married that I learned that we were expecting our first child. Times were very hard, and we never had much of a job, much income coming in, except for what Golden, his parents let him cut down some cottonwood trees and sell them for firewood, and then they give us milk and stuff. But we got by, and I went over about 5 o'clock in the morning, and they called the doctor, and he brought his wife out with him, I think, and he says, "Well, it's not going to be for a while yet," but I believe he stayed, and they fixed breakfast for him, but he was born, but he put me. They don't do that anymore, and I never have had them do it with any others. But they put me right out. I didn't even know when he was born till they brought him to show me that it was a boy. We didn't know in them days whether we was going to have a boy or a girl, but he was a cute little boy, and he grew to be a very intelligent little fellow, and his grandparents just about worshipped him, because they hadn't had a baby in the house for quite some years. Just the three boys, and they wanted to keep him overnight every once in a while, and when he was a baby, he almost got poisoned with he took some of Grandma Anglesy's Hinkle pills, which was that she took for constipation, and come to find out later that they had poison in them, and we rushed him to the hospital and got his stomach pumped, and then we were happy that he was still all right, because the pills came up whole, and on the way going, when he's thrown up, it came up whole. So it never affected him very much, but he did have pneumonia that year, and or the next year, I guess it was. But then when he was only a few months, about 3 months old, I found out that I was expecting again, and I was surprised that it came along that soon, but Marlene was only there was only 11 months between them, but Laval, he was a normal boy, but his grandfather, he taught him a lot to build. He liked to build things, and he liked to play with different toys and build a lot of things with that. And they got little farm machinery, and his grandpa helped him make well, they bought some too, like a John Deere tractor, and then his grandpa was quite a builder, and he helped him build some little farm machinery that he liked to play with. But he liked to do things with his hands ever since he was little. He liked to build things and little model planes and stuff like that, and he was pretty agreeable, but once in a while he'd like to tease his sisters, but when he got a little older, he was quite a big help on the farm, and he was always willing to do some work and help. There was he liked to go out and feed the chickens and the calves and help, and like all the children liked to play to go swimming, and then we'd have a big pond of water, or usually when we'd water the pasture, and there'd be ponds of water out there, and but there was a big canal run by, and I was always a little afraid that's going to fall in that, but we built a fence around, so had a fence built so so we felt a little safer, but they go swimming in the ditches, and then when they got a little bit older, I let them go over to another canal and swim, and they take inner tubes and float down and make water wings out of 2-gallon syrup buckets put them in a pillowcase and tied it. But anyway, when he got old enough to go to school, he wanted to play the cello, and he was really good at playing the cello too, and he was in the orchestra, but he liked to go over to a radio and TV shop there, and can't remember the name of that man right now, that he went over to his shop, and he just loved to see have him help him over, show him about the radios and the tubes in it, and he got so he could put that. He made a radio for us, and put all the tubes in, and besides that, he liked to send messages and fixed up this where he could send talk through it and send a message, and then he got to be radio operator. What do they call it?
Shortwave.
Huh?
Shortwave.
Shortwave radio operator, and he was really intelligent for his age, and when he got to be 13, a sad thing happened. we took him to the doctor and said he'd been having a pain in his leg, and he says, "Oh, I don't see anything wrong with it. It probably just growing pains or something. Kids will get little like that when they get about his age, and let it go about another couple of months, and then it started hurting worse, and so we went back in, and they decided to X-ray it, and they decided that he had cancer of the bone in his left leg, and they said, oh, they never had any radiology or radium or any chemo in those days, and the only thing they could do was, the only chance he had was to amputate his leg, but Laval took it good, and I remember of him saying, well, I know there must be some reason for this, but he says, I'm glad if I have to have a limb taken off, I'm glad it's my leg instead of my arm, because he liked to work with his hands so well, and so they just give us a couple of days, get ready for him to go to the hospital and have that done, and of course we were all, and his grandparents and everybody were really devastated. I think and the little children and the brothers and sisters, he had a little brother. Of course, John was only about a year old, so he don't remember him at all. But the others, Jeanette remembers him a little, and Cheryl, and of course Anna Jean was about 12, and Marlene was about like 14 at the time, and well, she wasn't that old because Val wasn't quite 14, so I guess Anna Jean must have been about 10, and he was about, and Marlene about 12, but he did pretty good. He learned to walk on crutches, went back to school, and seemed to be doing pretty good. But then this was for about 9 months, I guess, and then we found out that we took him to, we was going to see if we could get a prosthesis put on, but it was up so high they didn't think it'd work too good, and we took him to Boise, but then when we got back, I think it was just around Christmas time. It might have been, I think it was before Christmas that we learned that he'd come back, and to have he never had a chance of it getting better, but he went around and wanted to make a little money. He had made some money. He was putting away money for he wanted to go on a mission, and he had over $100, which was pretty good in those days, that he had saved and put in the bank. And he wanted to make a little more money to buy Christmas presents for his family, so he went around and sold some magazines, and got some money, and he made his dad and I a radio, put it all together himself, and so he you know, he still kind of liked to tease his sisters, but he was really a good son, and never never complained, although I knew he must have been in pain some, but people would come and see him, and he would tell them that, that he might die, but he was going on, to a better world if he did. And they'd go away. He'd even cheer some of them up when they came to see him. And he had a speaker set out outside there, and it's so that when anybody's coming up to walk, why he could turn it on, and it'd say, "Welcome, come on in," and kind of scare them a little bit. And he had his bedroom in front, but he started getting worse, and didn't finish up that 1 year of school, and then in the summer, but he got around pretty good and didn't get right down in bed, and he'd work on it in his little workshop in the small bedroom in front, where he had his bed and his workshop, and keep busy, and he read till as long as he could, and then I would go in and read to him some, but he got in September, and he died in July, but he would have been 16 in September. But people to this day, and that was in 1955, years ago, when he was there, but they still remember him. The ones that was living in our ward, or schoolmates and that, they still remember Laval, and I'm sure we'll never forget him. And then Marlene was almost like a twin to Laval, because she was only 11 months to the day younger, and I know she took it pretty hard, and they all, but Marlene was always a good-natured baby, and she liked to eat. She was a chubby little baby when she was little, but she was also, we thought she was really smart, because she learned to talk and walk even younger than the rest of them, I think, and she and Laval learned to talk about together. He would say a word, and she would repeat it after him, and she learned she could talk sentences before she was 2 years old, and they for some reason I never had any more children for a while after Marlene, but 5 years between her and Anna Jean, but we lived over LaBelle and we went to we didn't have the opportunity to go to Logan and get sealed in the temple until Laval was 4 and Marlene was 3, I guess, and we decided we didn't have a temple in Ida Falls then. We went to the temple and had them sealed to us, and Grandma Brown made them some little white dresses and or white clothes, and made Marlene a pretty little white dress and and Laval some white pants, a suit to wear to the temple. And then when I was expecting Anna Jean, my father and mother come over and wanted to know if we wanted to buy the farm, or wanted to come over and run the farm because of my father's health, that they thought it best if he quit farming. And so they said, so they had old machinery, and we went over and started. I think we had 6 cows at that time, but Anna Jean, after Laval died, they sort of had to take over the chores, and they were good to go out, but Anna Jean didn't mind going out and milking cows, but Marlene, she'd sooner work in the house and clean up the house. So Anna Jean was mostly, I think Marlene went out and she knew how to do it. By that time we got some milking machines, and she knew how to milk them if she had to, but she would sooner, which from the time she was 10 years old, she was a big help in the house to me. She'd just sweep the floors and pick up things, and I know I shouldn't have I should have been a little more firm and not had so many things cluttered up in her house, but and Marlene had come home from school, while she'd light right in and first thing and pick up everything and sweep the floor and mop the kitchen, and she was so good to help, and she was a good student in school, and I don't know whether she got straight A's, but she was a good student, and she had all of the kids had friends there, but we started in Clark Ward when we moved over there, but then we decided to go. I guess maybe I made a mistake by having them go to Shelton because it was a little closer, and I thought if they had to, they could walk, and I could walk to Relief Society because we only had one car, and a lot of times Golden was working and had working off somewhere and had the car. So, she had a lot of friends, and then when they got out of high school, she wanted to go. She wanted to go to Rick's College, and she had some good roommates, and we didn't have. Depression was going on, and we didn't have much to give her, but she. And I remember us putting up lots of string beans, and Marlene was so fast at doing things, and she'd have the beans snapped about as fast as I could cook them in the old pressure cooker, and she'd take a lot of string beans up to school, and homemade bread and fruit and stuff from home, and her roommates would take other things, and I think she enjoyed going to school, and she married a good fellow, D. Larson, after she was out of college, Rick's, and she was a really good daughter, and then Anna Jean was born about 5 years after Marlene, and she liked, I don't remember, she liked to sit around a little table, and she had 3 or 4 dolls sitting around. That was her favorite thing to do, is sit around a little table, have all her dolls around her, and have play dinners. And they all liked to go out and when they were little and make mud pies and play in the straw stack and make and slide down it and make little caves in there. They especially liked to go swimming in the ditches and in canal and things, and she liked to do that. And she was also a good-natured girl and never got in fights much with her older sister and brother and him, and she when she got a little after Laval died, why she kind of took over. She'd put on boots and go out and help with the irrigating. She liked to work outside better than she did inside, and so she was a big help to us. And then she wanted to go to Rick's College, and she had her friends mostly didn't go to church, but she was a good influence on them and got them to go, and some of them to go into church, and Jean did. But then she had met Ned before he went on a mission to Ireland, and when she was going to Rick's College, she went out on other dates, but she still kept thinking about Ned and writing to him, and when he got home, why he went with a few other girls, but he decided that Anna Jean was the one for him. So they got married when I think she was 20, and in the temple. By that time, we had a temple in Outer Falls, and her and Ned got married in August in Outer Falls, she's and like all of them, you know, she not perfect, but she's a very religious girl, always was, and never wanted to break any of the commandments, and they've raised a good family, and then Cheryl was born. They waited another about 5 years, and Cheryl was born, and she was in 49, and the year Cheryl was born, we had big blizzards, and a big blizzard, and cover up all the fence posts in there, and we couldn't plow the roads out. I wondered if she was born in November, but had a big blizzard about that time, and but I remember of thinking, oh, I hope I can make it to hospital, but I did. There was, but we made it there okay, but had a little harder time with her birth. They said the cord was wrapped around her neck, and it's a wonder she didn't die. But she was a pretty little girl, and she when about the time Laval went to Texas, the elders quorum had got money for him. There was a cancer clinic out there, and we took her with us to Texas, and she got the biggest kick out of that riding there, and she called the Indian hogans. We went by Indian toilets. I remember that. That was kind of funny, but she as she got a little older, she liked to do things. She liked to. She was pretty good oldest and things that she liked she what kept busy, but she liked to do the things that she wanted to do. She didn't want to do too much of helping around the helping around, but unless we on Saturdays I'd kind of divide the work up, but she did like to, she liked to do the things that she wanted to do, and she still does, I think, like that, but she can't always do everything that you want to do, and and then 2 years there's just not much more. Just 2 years. They're both born in November. Jeanette came along, and she was and she was also a pretty girl, and good natured, and she would usually help, but I think they all helped out on the farm some, like putting the hay up and piling hay and like that. But Jeanette more liked to work like Marlene and liked to work in the house and more and help. But I didn't make the boys pick up their clothes, and she'd get quite aggravated about that because the boys was always treating their stuff around and didn't pick them up, and she was always so neat, and she took after Grandma Brown for sewing, and when she was little she liked to sew, and she got to be a really good seamstress, and she also was good in school, and got good grades, and when she got to be 16, she wanted to go out to Marlene's and for the summer and work, and she went out and Marlene got her a job in Estes Park, babysitting, attending some kids' children out there, and she made a little money, and that kind of tickled her. So she liked to and then she came back and finished high school, and also went to Rick's College, and she won, and she wanted to go into decorating quite bad because she's really good at decorating and sewing, and then she went back out to Marlene and Dee's and stayed that summer, and she met this friend that she met a fellow that was a brother to Marlene, one of Marlene's best friends, and Glenn Gray, and they started going together. Jeanette had been quite popular and had some boyfriends, but she decided that when Glenn asked her to marry him, that she would marry him, and he was at that time he hadn't joined the army, but he was working in for the army, and they've moved around a lot, but Jeanette's always wanted a good home, and kept it looking really nice, and she done work. And anyway, then I wanted to tell about John. He came next, and he was in about another 2 years. John was born, and we were glad to get another boy, and he was about 1.5 years old when Val died, but he was such a such a active little fellow. He was on the go all the time, and you couldn't keep him still. But I guess in a way that's good, because when they get older they have a lot of ambition. But I would take him to church. I'd have to walk around with him when he was a baby and let him look out of the window. They never had no cry room or anything. We just had the chapel, and then his sisters they tended him a lot, but he was a pretty good kid when he was growing up, but he didn't like to milk cows, but he liked horses, and when he got to be about 14, he started breaking horses for people, and he's always having accidents, and once he almost got his shoulder tore right off, or he got through off a horse, but they had a good bone specialist, and he doesn't have any problems with it, but he was always doing dangerous things, and his sisters didn't think he'd live to be 30 years old, but he has, and he wanted to, when his father got arthritis too bad, and he had to quit. He had to quit farming. John went to the army for about 5 months, but he didn't like it there at all, and his dad needed him home, so they got him out of there. He bought a horse, but didn't have very good luck with him. He had a little Shetland pony and another horse, and they got out on the road and got killed, and that was, he was broken-hearted about that, but he got some more horses, and then he decided he would like to race them, so he got first he went to some races, and then he found out about this race charity association, so he decided that he wanted to, that's what he wanted to do, was to race in the chariot races. And by that time he got married, but that marriage didn't work out, and he felt really bad when his wife left and went to their parents in Alaska and took the baby with them, but then he met another girl and married her, and they got when their little girl was 3 years old, they split up, but those wives, they didn't like him spending out so much money racing those chariot horses, because they never got much money out of him, but he did really well for a while, and once he was about state champion of the chariot races, and he got to go to the Worlds, and he's got lots of medals for that. And he run the farm for a while, and then he decided he wanted to buy it, and so he started putting money on it, and then when his dad died, why we went to judging, and well, we had to take Medicaid because of Golden's heart surgery, and had to take but they proved that that he had started to buy the house, the farm, and we got the house separate, and he got the farm. But after he rented a while, he decided that he wasn't making anything on. You just can't make money on a small farm, so he leased it out, and he been renting it to a good farmer ever since. But he has by his third wife, he got married, and she went right along with everything that John wanted to do, and they've got along fine. She had 2 little boys and two children that was living with their father at the time, and then they had two more little girls. But he lives by me now, and if ever I need anything, why, I know I can call on John. Well, then Rhonda was born 2 years, when a little better than 2 years after John, and she was a cute little girl, and she liked all the farm animals, and she liked sewing also, but we was all devastated when we found out, when she is only 10 years old, that she had diabetes, which runs in the family a lot, and she would have to have a shot every day and limit her diet, and she never, and she started going with a fellow called Gary Freeman, and they wanted to get married. She wasn't quite 17. She says, well, diabetics don't live too long, and I'd like to live long enough to have a family and get married and have a family, and talked us into letting her get married. But I guess that was a mistake, because he turned out to be an alcoholic, but she lived with him for 8 years and had 3 children, but she wasn't doing the best, but they split up after 8 years, and she made the mistake of running away with several of her children, and so when they took it to court, why, Gary got he had quit drinking, and he got the kids, and that was really hard on Rhonda. But we knew that was a mistake, and she knew it afterwards. But she loved her children so much that she's afraid that she's going to be taken away from her, and but she never had a very happy life during her married life, and she finally got a little place that she liked to live in, and she did get to see her kids once in a while. They was living in Seattle, Washington, but and she was going to be able to get them more, but she suddenly died in her sleep at 4 o'clock in the morning, and a friend was there, and they took her to the hospital, and they said that it was probably her heart just quit beating, and they say sometimes diabetics do that their heart just can't stand all stand that. She's in and out of the hospital a lot, and I'm sure the last 3 years she was doing good for and going to another Christian church, but she was taking little Hispanic children to church and living a good moral life, and I'm sure she's happier where she is. It was really hard on us because it was such a shock, but I have come to know, and it was made known to me that she is happy where she is. We have gone to the temple and got her work done, and I had the feeling that the Val was teaching her over there, and she has accepted it. And I felt when we was in the temple that she had accepted the work, and so I know that she's happy where she is. Yes, that's it.
Did you talk about Rodney?
Is that?
No, you can. Did you talk about Rodney yet?
Oh, Rodney. Yeah, I better tell about my last son, Rodney. He was born about 2 years after 2 years after Rhonda, and I was so happy when we got another boy, and he was quite a chubby, cute little boy, and he liked to play and do things, but he wasn't like John. He wasn't really real active like John was, but he was a good worker though, and helped on the farm and milked the cows. I wouldn't even have to go in and call him. He had set his alarm clock for 5 o'clock in the morning. He'd get up every morning before school and milk the cows before he went to school. And he didn't mind the cows either. They didn't lift a foot when he went out there to milk them. He was good to them, and then he helped haul hay and things like that. Never particularly liked to ride on machinery, and but he was good to help, and but when he got about 14, why, he got in with the wrong crowd and was and he didn't want to come home and milk the cows. He wasn't chasing around with these friends that weren't that he shouldn't have been. But I guess he did feel like that if he had a drink or something, why, he felt better about himself. I think he had kind of an inferiority complex for a while, but he always was a good worker and always kept a job. And then he went out to Texas and with these friends, and I never got to see him hardly at all. He'd come home about once a year, or once or twice a year, and when he was 30 years old, why, he met this Lisa, and she was quite a pretty girl, and they decided to get married out by Marlene's Lake, and they seemed to get along pretty good for a while. But she had a mental illness, which if she would take her medicine, she was pretty good, but if she didn't, why, and sometimes she didn't think she needed, why, she was just kind of out of her head, and he he put up with that as long as for 8 years. Decided to get a divorce from her, and he never remarried. But he was out there for 17 years, but he always had a job. And then he came back. Why? He decided to come home. He lost his job out there and decided to come home, and he got a trailer house over Bowery, and he's working in the potatoes for a while. But he didn't really like that, working in potatoes, and the trailer was cold in the winter, and it was too hot, and wasn't in good shape, and he had to keep the they just only heat they had in the winter was a stove they had to put wood in, and it was quite a job of keeping, and it was going to be hot. So I says, well, why don't you move back here with me? Because by that time I had diabetes really bad, and I felt like I needed somebody there with me, and I had other health problems, and so he been living there with me for the last 3 years, and this last this last summer he he decided he needed something more to do, and he got a job working for RV and trailers, and his job was to move the trailers around where they want them, and he really likes it there. They don't pay him very good wages, but they're really good to him and a good place to work, and they give him feeds, and they even bought Rod a new winter coat because he has to work out when he drives the tractor to pull his trailers, why he has to work outside. And he's really got religious, and since he got back here to Idaho, but he got in with another Christian church. So right now, why he goes to Idaho Falls to church, which I try to talk to him, and I think someday he'll realize that he's going to the wrong church, but that doesn't have the fullness of the gospel. But right now he thinks he says wonderful prayers, and he has a lot of faith in God. So I'm glad of that, and he helps me when he can, and he's there if I need him, and so he doesn't seem to be interested in getting remarried or having a family, but and I don't know whether he's set in his ways whether he ever will or not, but he's good to me. We get along all right, and it's good to have somebody to cook for, and